What do you know about Mexican cartels? These two words evoke associations with drugs and violence for many, but what is really behind them? My name is Knox, and today we are going to Mexico to look at 10 shocking cases of confrontations with cartels. Real stories that are happening right now, on the streets, in airports, at the borders. And in the end, you will find out why cartels operate like real armies, where they get their resources, weapons, and connections around the world. Ambush on police in Michoacan. The first incident occurred in Michoacan. A police patrol was on its route when suddenly gunfire erupted from all sides. It was an ambush prepared by one of the most brutal cartels in the region, the Jalisco New Generation Cartel. This is a typical tactic of cartels. They choose remote and hard-to-reach places where they can inflict maximum damage. In this case, the police didn't even have time to understand what was happening. How were bullets already raining down on them? Why does this happen? Because the police are the first ones to stand in the way of the cartels. However, the problem is that the police often lack the resources to confront such organized and armed groups. The cartels have arsenals comparable to those of the military, and their ranks often include former soldiers. Corruption and fear for their own lives lead many police officers to simply turn a blind eye to the activities of the cartels. The Jalisco New Generation Cartel is one of the most brutal and influential in Mexico. They are not shy about openly attacking representatives of authority to show their power and warn others, don't interfere in their business. But sometimes the cartels go even further. They attack strategic targets, such as airports, the takeover of the airport in Culiacan. In 2019, the world was shocked by the events in Culiacan, the capital of Sinaloa state. After the arrest of Ovidio Guzman, the son of the famous drug lord El Chapo, the Sinaloa cartel unleashed real chaos. Armed militants attacked strategically important sites in the city to free their leader. And one of those sites was the international airport. They blocked roads, seized checkpoints, and even opened fire on planes parked on the runway. The shooting went on for hours. Passengers waiting for their flights had to take cover from the bullets, and some flights were canceled. This was not just an attack on the airport. This is a demonstration of how far cartels can go when they want something. On that day, authorities were forced to retreat, and Ovidio was freed, while the Sinaloa cartel once again demonstrated its power. Control over logistics is a key part of cartel business, and controlling the border is their top priority. Smuggling at the border with the U.S. The border between Mexico and the U.S. is the epicenter of the drug war. Here, on these desolate roads, millions of dollars in drugs, weapons, and people pass through. But it's not just a struggle for smuggling, it's a war for control. The war for the border is not just a battle on land. Smugglers use underground tunnels, drones, and even submarines to transport their goods. They equip special armored vehicles and use surveillance technology to outsmart border agents. But despite all the efforts of governments, the flow of drugs and weapons continues to grow. Every year, about 90% of the cocaine that enters the U.S. comes through the Mexico-U.S. border. That's billions of dollars, and the cartels will do everything possible to maintain control over these flows. But, as we will see later, the battles of the cartels happen not just at the border. Even local farmers and communities become hostages of this war. Avocado. Surprising, right? This product has become real green gold for Mexican farmers. But the cartels see it not just as fruit, but as huge money. They take control of avocado production, demanding a tax from farmers. Avocado is a multi-billion-dollar industry. Just imagine that every avocado on your toast or in guacamole could be the result of a tax. That farmers pay to the cartels to avoid being killed. The cartels come to the plantations, threaten with weapons, and demand a share of the sales. This has become such a serious problem that many farmers are forced to resort to self-defense, creating their own armed groups to protect their lands. In some areas, this has led to real clashes between farmers and cartel gunmen. And all of this is happening not just because of drugs. The cartels are already involved in controlling agricultural products and resources that bring profit. But how do the cartels get their weapons? Why are they so well armed? This question opens another dark chapter in the history of Mexican drug cartels. The cartels' arsenals, arms smuggling. You've probably noticed that the cartels are armed as well as armies, and in some cases even better. But how do they get their weapons? The source is literally around the corner, in the United States. Every year, thousands of firearms are illegally smuggled across the Mexican-American border. Everything, from regular handguns to assault rifles and even grenade launchers, ends up in the hands of the cartels. According to statistics, about 70% of all the weapons confiscated from the cartels were manufactured in the U.S. This process is so well established that the cartels even purchase weapons legally through front companies and individuals, then illegally smuggle them into Mexico. In exchange, the cartels send drugs back to the U.S. It's a two-way scheme that has remained almost unchecked for many years. Why does this happen? In the U.S., gun laws are significantly more lenient than in Mexico. The cartels take advantage of this opportunity by purchasing weapons in states with the most liberal laws, such as Texas or Arizona. Then, through corruption and criminal networks, this weapon makes its way into Mexico. The cartels attack on a National Guard unit in Zacatecas. Now imagine yourself in the shoes of the Mexican National Guard soldiers. You're driving down a deserted road in Zacatecas, a routine patrol. Suddenly, vehicles block the road, and a hail of gunfire starts from all sides. These aren't just bandits with pistols. These are heavily armed fighters from one of the most dangerous cartels, equipped with assault rifles and grenade launchers. In this episode, captured on camera this year, a National Guard squad was caught off guard as militants surrounded them, setting up a large-scale ambush. Within minutes, the situation turned into a fierce gunfight, where every bullet could be the last. This case once again shows that the cartels of Mexico are not just criminal organizations, they are real fighting forces ready to destroy anyone who stands in their way. But what do you do when you're facing not just criminals, but professional fighters with heavy weaponry? Regular patrols and soldiers often find themselves in traps with no way out. However, cartel violence is not limited to just clashes with the military. They use kidnappings and mass killings as tools of intimidation, and this is becoming part of their everyday practice. With each new clash, the feeling grows that the cartels operate with impunity, but this is just the tip of the iceberg. While these armed clashes continue, the cartels employ even more horrific tactics: kidnapping and mass killings. How do they turn fear into their weapon? Let's take a look at how this strategy of terror shapes the reality for the people of Mexico and threatens entire communities. Kidnapping and mass killings. Mexican cartels are known not only for their drug business. Kidnapping and mass killings are part of their strategy of terror. In just the last 10 years, tens of thousands of people have disappeared in Mexico. Most of them are victims of the cartels. Kidnappings are used by the cartels as a tool of intimidation. They abduct not only those who stand in their way, but also those who just happen to be in the wrong place, at the wrong time. One of the most notorious cases was the mass abduction of students in Ayotzinapa in 2014. It was a shocking case. 43 students from a teacher's college were kidnapped and killed while traveling by bus through territory controlled by the cartel. The investigation into this case is still ongoing, and many details remain hidden. This case has become a symbol of how deep the problem of corruption and the ties between the cartels and authorities run. The emergence of new cartels. Old cartels like Sinaloa and Jalisco continue to dominate the black market for drugs. However, new players are increasingly emerging on the scene, young, ambitious, and much more technologically advanced. These new groups use advanced technology to conduct their criminal activities. Drones are used for reconnaissance, encrypted communication systems for coordinating operations, and cryptocurrencies for financial transactions, making their actions more covert and harder for law enforcement to access. These cartels not only adapt more quickly to new conditions, but also implement new business methods. However, despite all the technological innovations, one thing remains unchanged: their brutality. These groups are ruthless and use violence as their primary tool to achieve their goals. International connections. Now we have reached the most important part of the story. Mexican cartels are not just a local problem, but a global threat affecting the economy, politics, and security worldwide. Their influence extends to all continents, starting from North America and reaching Africa and Asia. These cartels are establishing connections with the mafias of Europe, Asia, Africa, and even Australia. Cocaine produced in Latin America finds a market in Europe, methamphetamine in Asia, and weapons smuggled through the cartels end up in the hands of militants worldwide. This is a transnational criminal network that is difficult to dismantle. Despite regular arrests and seizures, this system continues to operate like a well-oiled machine. Every time we hear about a major operation to catch criminals, it's just a small victory in the global war against the cartels. Behind every high-profile arrest lies a much larger network that continues its operations. Confrontation with journalists. Journalism in Mexico has become a real target for the cartels. This is one of the most dangerous countries for those conducting independent investigations. This is mainly due to the fact that journalists uncover facts that criminal groups try to hide: illegal operations, political connections, and corrupt schemes. Every journalist attempting to expose the activities of the cartels risks their life, as these criminal organizations see the press as a direct threat to their operations. The case of Roberto Tavares is just one of many similar tragedies. Tavares was known for his sharp articles where he exposed corrupt schemes linked to new players in the drug trade. Despite numerous threats, he continued his work. However, one day his car was found shot up on a deserted road in the state of Chihuahua. Cartels always strive to suppress independent investigations to keep their operations secret. It's important to understand that in such regions, power and cartels often have a symbiotic relationship, and journalists are the only ones trying to expose this connection. Systematic intimidation and murder of journalists have become a common tactic of cartels to prevent exposure of their activities. In conclusion, it can be said that Mexican cartels are not just criminal organizations, but powerful and complex structures that operate on a global level. Each of their operations is a carefully planned move in the global war for influence and control. By the way, if you need a job, if you can write scripts, have editing or voiceover skills, you have the opportunity to join our team. Message our Telegram bot, link in the description.